Welcome to the SparkCom community, to our inaugural video podcast, video blog. My name is Manny and we have Adam Hartung as well. Adam, you want to introduce yourself?
Manny, good to see you today. How's life in Tucson?
Life is beautiful. It's a little overcast, and it's a wonderful day today. So looking forward to chatting a bit about something that is in everybody's mind at the moment in the news. And I wanted to get your thoughts on the Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd, all of these things that are happening right now in the world, and how it pertains to business, how it pertains to where the innovators are innovating with all this stuff mixed in. So I want to get your thoughts on the movement, and let's start from there.
Well, I noticed yesterday that many of the press were starting to talk about the role that CEOs have taken on, meaning they're coming out and speaking openly about the need for diversity and the value they have for the Black Lives Matter movement. And normally CEOs of corporations wouldn't have a lot to say about a social topic like that, but they're speaking out now, and there's really good reason for it. If you have an organization that's not diverse, then you're running a lot of risk that you're not going to do well, right? If you have a small way of looking at the world because you have this very homogenous culture, then it's going to be problematic. How you're going to compete, how you're going to attract customers. And so right now, I think what we have is a situation where the business community is way ahead of where the government is. The government and people that are in social institutions are still somehow grappling with something that business came to understand years ago, which is you have to be inclusive. You have to be out there looking around, looking at the community, seeing what's going on, and then bringing those people into your organization. You want to bring them in as customers, you want to bring them in as suppliers, you want to bring them in as part of the community that you work in, and you want to bring them in as your employees or as your connected workforce. Like the gig economy today, they're not necessarily employees, but your connected workforce. So, it's a sad state when we have a situation where people are out rioting because we have these institutions like the police that are so far behind where most of our business leaders are thinking today.
Yeah, that's true. And do you see anything in our country versus other countries, how they're doing things differently that we might learn from in at least the United States? Or is there any countries that have it right that you're aware of?
Well, the interesting thing is that America is this melting pot, which is I don't know of any other country in the world, and I've traveled to most of them, where you have as many immigrants. I mean, we are a country of immigrants. Unless you're a Native American, of which there aren't very many left, sadly to say, then you're an immigrant to this country. Usually within 2 or 3 generations, you're an immigrant to this country. And so our culture, for lack of a better word, as a nation, has been defined by how these different groups have interacted and how people have accomplished things. And it's different than when I go around the world. If I go to France, there are people who are French, and they're very proud of French, and many, many generations of French, proud to be British, proud to be German, proud to be from these countries. And therefore, their culture tends to be more homogenous. There does tend to be more of a singular culture. And when they have immigrants to their culture, I think they struggle to integrate those people even more than we do. I mean, our view in America is bring them in, let them find a job, let them get to work. That's largely been the way we've been for 250 years. In many of these other countries, come in if you've got a job, or come in and if you get a job, you get to stay. So I think in that regard, we are ahead. We've always been a nation of immigrants. Now, this has recently changed, but it's much to our detriment. Again, I go back to the business leaders. You have the heads of major corporations saying to the government, don't shut off immigration. We need these people. We need the ones that go to college to come in and work jobs. We need the ones that go graduate school to come in and do thought leadership for us. And we need some of these people who don't even have degrees to come in and work in our organizations and do the things that have to get done on a daily basis. So our business leaders are saying, don't shut down the borders, don't shut down immigration. But it's these social institutions that seem to be, again, problematic and running, I would say, almost 20 years behind where the business community is today.
Yeah, I see that. When I ran my company as Terra a number of years ago, I was looking for engineers, very specific kind of engineer with a controls background. And we did a series of, Monster and Indeed and all these other tools. And I think I received probably 25 resumes. 23 of those were immigrants.
Yeah.
People here finishing school, people on a green card. And it was just interesting for me as, especially living so close to the border, to have such a very close connection to the immigration stuff, right? My parents were immigrants. I'm first generation born here. And living in a border town is a different dynamic than living, say, in the middle of the Midwest or, the coasts. So how do you think a business leader should take a stance? And I'll give you an example. We watched the video the other day of Nike, right? Their whole mantra is just do it. And that's been the gong they've been sounding for years and years, right? And I mean, they're essentially selling that they don't sell sports equipment or shoes or whatever. They're selling a message and a feeling. And they posted a video that said, don't do it. Don't do it. So they went against their mantra, right? For this temporary time, people rioting, people making a statement. So how do business leaders approach this sort of like three-legged stool of, okay, we support the Black Lives Matter movement, but we don't support the rioting, but we support the message? I mean, how do they sift through all that?
Again, I don't think that business leaders have a lot or should be saying a lot about violence in the community, other than it's certainly not helpful, right? Because business leaders aren't in a position to control the police or the military or the other people that carry guns. So that tends, in my mind, to move beyond where business leaders need to be. Where business leaders need to speak out is to say, listen, we need these people. We need them in our community, and we need them in our workforce. And then they have to really push their own organization to live and breathe that. 25 years ago, when I was a young fellow working at the DuPont Corporation, I was on an up-and-coming track, and they asked me to head a diversity program. That was 25 years ago. DuPont prided itself in a culture in which the people that worked there, most of them had backgrounds in chemistry or some of the form of the sciences. And so the reaction when I first started working on the diversity program was I had a number of people that came to me and said, Adam, look at these charts. Look at the number of graduates from chemistry, physics, engineering that we have at these universities. And look, you'll see that they're all white males. So it's not that we have a problem at DuPont. It's a problem that we don't have the right feedstock. And I was just appalled, because it was this really tricky way of being opposed to inclusion, of being opposed to diversity, by trying to say, we can't get there from here, right? And the mantra I had to take up and I had to say to people was, oh no, there are plenty of qualified people out there, but maybe we need to look at our qualifications. Are some of our qualifications just based on the fact that that's what we're like? In other words, we started with this background, so now we want everybody else to have this background. Why couldn't we change some of the qualifications for a lot of these jobs? And we would have very qualified people that can do the job. But putting them through the ringer of saying you have to have a degree in chemistry is sort of like, if you join the Marines, you got to go through 11 weeks of basic training. This is business. We don't have to do that. And that's the part where I think leaders often fall down. It's easy to come out and say, hey, I want a diverse organization. Hey, I want to include everybody in my discussions. But then on a day-to-day basis, they'll start to hear these things like, well, we can't find people with those qualifications. Or do we really need to include these people in these discussions? And it'll whittle away at these edges of the discussion. And people will start saying, well, I guess we don't need to worry about that person in this meeting. Or I don't know, maybe you're right. Maybe we do need to try to maintain our culture in some way, right? So that we keep these qualifications. And it undercuts the entire message. Now what happens is the organization stays where it's been, and it holds tightly to itself, and it tries to hold on to whatever culture was created early on, and you don't get the kind of inclusion that you want. I mean, Google's been going through this in spades for the last 10 years, right? Highly white male-dominated culture, people with backgrounds in engineering and from specific schools. They really like people from the University of Illinois. They really like people from MIT, Caltech, Stanford. And so what happens is they use these excuses in order to say, well, you got to get through the interview process. I had to get through the interview process. You have to get through the interview process. And the interview process is geared to ask questions that certain kinds of people can answer and other kinds of people really struggle with. See? So that's where leadership really takes on its important role. To come out and say, I support Copernic. I hope I said the gentleman's name right, the fellow who led the charge in the NFL to take a knee during the national anthem. It's one thing to say that. It's another thing, do you turn around in your organization and find those same people in your organization and support them? When they're saying, hey, boss, maybe we should change some of the requirements in terms of who we hire, or maybe we should change some of the requirements in terms of who we promote, or maybe we should look at this differently. Are you doing that? Are you actually bringing in the right people to the discussion so that you can create the culture of the future? Well, any organization can live on the culture of its past for a while, but then you're going to get this big disruption like we're seeing in the streets of America. Yeah, that was our old culture, and I guess we accepted that, but a bunch of people weren't accepting it. A bunch of people were very unhappy about it. A bunch of people said it needed to change, and now they're saying, look, we're going to change. We're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
Nice in business to not let it get that far. It's a lot nicer in business to see it early, and then as leaders go in and work with our organization to include different kinds of people in the discussion and make sure that we're evolving our organization to be more open and honest.
Right. Let's go off of that vein there, Adam, and let's talk about when the idea of companies and businesses sort of getting more and deeper in the same domain, right? People that do that, the term is escaping me at the moment, but people that become experts, companies that become experts and become so singular, and the vision is all, this is who we are, and they stand to that. What are some of the dangers in living that way? What are some of the dangers of a business becoming more and more specialized? And how can, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Can you give me your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a bad thing. It's a very bad thing. So I didn't accidentally bring up my history with DuPont. DuPont doesn't exist today. There was this company that 25 years ago was one of the 10 biggest corporations in America. It was a leader. It operated something called the Experimental Station, which was this giant research facility on the banks of the Delaware River that was literally had more PhDs in it than most universities do. So here was this organization that had everything to be an advanced thinking organization, but they got locked into their culture. They got tied into these ideas about the backgrounds of the people, ideas about not invented here, like, this is DuPont, we invented, nylon, we invented Teflon and all these different products. So, very resistant to bringing in outside technology, very resistant to bringing in high-level leaders from the outside. And what that did was they kept getting weaker. As time went by, competitors got stronger and other organizations got more powerful. They had more diversity and more inclusion, and they were able to see more opportunities and get into more markets so that this overhead that DuPont carried they couldn't continue to carry it. In come the raiders, and they unmasked the culture for what it is, obliterate the organization, and it's not there anymore.
Yeah. So
DuPont's a great example of what leaders have to be thoughtful about and fearful. In that, if you think you're creating a strong culture, be very thoughtful what you're saying there. Are you saying we now have a culture in which everybody's like us, right? Look at what happened to Michael Bloomberg. The financial services industry for years known as a male-dominated culture and mostly a white male-dominated culture. He thinks, I did well, I made a lot of money, I'm going to run for president of the United States. As soon as he does, all these women start raising their hands and saying, excuse me, do you remember what you said in this meeting? Do you remember what you said at this group, at this organization? Do you remember what you said? He thought, oh, hey, that's the way it was and that was okay, and nobody's going to remember that? Oh, come on. Come on, Michael, that was a stupid thing to do. But the problem was, it was a stupid thing to do, and he didn't want to admit that. He didn't say in his head, wow, I did all this stuff 10 years ago when I was not enlightened, and I should have been a lot more enlightened. Had he thought about that, his organization, Bloomberg, would be more enlightened, their industry would be more enlightened, we'd have a different situation than we do today. So, it's really, really incumbent upon leaders to be very careful. They're not saying we have a strong culture and thinking that's a good thing, because often it's going to mean that you've got some very serious blinders on your organization and you're using this culture as an excuse to keep those blinders.
Yeah, very true. There was something that happened yesterday that was sort of a microcosm of all this. There's a magazine here in Arizona called Arizona Foothills Magazine. And the wife of the CEO of this magazine posted something on social media, I believe it was Instagram, that said it was extremely insensitive, and it's basically bringing down this organization. She said, "Where are all those mass shooters now when we need them to help the police with these rioters?"
Right.
So she posted that, and in a matter of a few hours, it was all over the internet. They tried to backtrack. They tried to say that she said this because she was on meds for she had back surgery, and they couldn't come back from that. And likely the magazine's going to die.
Yeah.
It had lots of followers. It had 500,000 followers, and this and that. I mean, it's going to come, tumbling down. So let's talk a little bit about trends, because that's a lot of what we talk about how business owners can be open and look at what's coming next. Where do you see this conversation going with the Black Lives Matter? What are some of the trends that perhaps a small business owner, an entrepreneur, what should they be looking for after this, is happening? I mean, it's going to change everything going forward, obviously, but is there anything they can be aware of or be smart about going forward?
All entrepreneurs and all small businessmen rely for their success on serving underserved markets. Big corporations thrive on serving the existing market as it is today. You need a big organization if you're going to sell corn. Nothing very innovative about corn, nothing new happening in corn. Big organization just moves a whole lot of corn. So where do small companies fit into the economy? Where do startups and entrepreneurs fit? They identify those underserved markets, and they come up with solutions for those underserved markets. In America, we have lots of underserved markets. Think about the immigrant community. For 200 years, we've been an immigrant nation. We will return to that at some point in the future, and the issues that we've had about shutting down the borders will be reduced again, okay? Are you serving the immigrants? How are you serving the immigrants? Are you selling things that they need when they come to this country from somewhere else? Are you helping them to assimilate, into America, but also bring along their history with them? Are you hiring them? Are you making them part of your supplier base? Are you reaching out and saying, I could sell these products, or I could use this kind of technology? If you're an entrepreneur and you see another entrepreneur who's perhaps new to America, and they're trying to bring in, they've got a product or a technology you need, are you partnering with those people, right? What we tend to do, again, we'll get back and say, we tend as entrepreneurs to like to work with people that are like us. So, if you're an entrepreneur, like, oh, you're a great Midwestern guy, I know that we'll get along great, or I know your background, or hey, well, we're all engineers in this room, or hey, you know what, we all we all go to the same church or practice the same religion, things like that. And we tend to accumulate or get together in those bands. And what I think we should be learning from this is that you're going to be stronger because you're going to be better at identifying underserved markets and finding solutions for underserved markets when you reach out and you integrate all of these different types of people into your organization. More women, more people that are Muslim, more people that are of color. Integrating them into your entire business plan will help you to see these underserved opportunities.
Yeah, I see that. And I read somewhere, and we'll provide this in our one of our emails. There was a study done a couple of years ago that talked about the number one qualifier for success. And it wasn't Ivy League. It wasn't born with a silver spoon in your mouth. It wasn't, tons of money, whatever, although that helps. The number one qualifier for long-term success is a person's ability to navigate networks outside of their own network. So somebody to come in, if you're running with the same tribe all the time, and like you said, Midwest people, or you're from here, you're from there, I went to this school, I went to that school, and if you just stay there stagnant, you have less of a chance of long-term success than if you are able to navigate other networks that are not your own. whether that's in a different industry, different people of color, or different, organizations. So I think that's extremely relevant. And so perhaps businesses should be looking at proactive ways to be looking at to expand their network, to expand their touch points.
I mean, Black Lives Matter is 10% of the population in the United States saying we are underserved. Our needs are not being met. Okay, so that's 10% of the population, 10 to 15%. In some cities, it's much higher. So immediately, as an entrepreneur, you should say to yourself, what needs do they have that are unmet? And how could I help them meet those needs? What could I do to service those needs? That's what an entrepreneur and a small businessman should kind of be soaking in from this discussion. And then as you look around, you'll see that at these protests, they're not just all Black people, right? It's not all just people of color. It's not Black and brown. There's a very significant mix of people in those groups. What is that telling you? That they recognize that they're not being served either, that they feel underserved. So identify those needs. What are those underserved needs? And if you're an entrepreneur and you start to tap into that, listen to what people are saying, tap into those underserved needs, it'll help you see these opportunities. And when you, again, as you said, you reach outside your network and you start to serve these other opportunities, the profit can just go up astronomically.
Right. For our final topic here, Adam, I want to kind of bring to light a little bit of a complex question that has to do with what you just said. And I'll try to do it systematically here so here's the idea. You've got somebody who's looking at an underserved market. I'm going to use the example of, and this is very relevant because my fiance is a woman of color. And about 9 months ago, I went to a conference that had to do with skincare. And so there was a 2 or 3 groups of entrepreneurs selling hair care products for the Black community, for those that had, very curly hair. And so I thought about this idea. You've got these people that are looking at an underserved market. And one of these folks was selling into Target. And her goal, when I talked to her, her goal was to be acquired by a large multinational, like a Unilever, that makes, Head and Shoulders shampoo, and they can, at a brush stroke, at a stroke of a pen, can sell this worldwide. So there's a little bit of a mix, right? She wants to serve the underserved community. She wants to give back to her community. She is pushing back the idea of, the big pharma or big cosmetics or whatever. So, but at the same time, she wants to get bought by them. So how does somebody in that idea sort of balance out, still serving the community, still, going after this underserved community and selling, which is a lot of the times the ultimate goal is to be able to be acquired by somebody. How do you balance that in your mind as an entrepreneur?
All right, so she made a fundamental error that unfortunately dooms a lot of entrepreneurs. So that's a great question that you're bringing up. We do not control our own destiny. Markets control our destiny. All we do is decide what markets we're going to compete in and how we're going to compete. So results happen because of what we do. We don't control results. If we could control results, we'd all be rich, right? Because we'd say, I want to be rich, we'd all be rich, but you don't. You control what you can do. So you control the market you get into and you control how you can compete. As a result of what you do, you can make more money, the value of your company can go up, you might be acquired. These things could be the outcomes, right? Now, it's okay to have those ideas as outcomes in the back of your mind, but you can't run your business that way. Your business has to be run on the basic idea of what is my value proposition? How do I deliver value to my customers? Focus on that, obsess about that. If you're delivering value to your customers, then what happens is you'll flourish. People will buy more stuff, you build up a stronger community, and you're able to get better results. But the results happen because of that focus on the customer, that focus on your value proposition and being able to constantly deliver that value. What she has to do is say, well, maybe someday down the road I'll be very wealthy. How will I become wealthy? Oh, maybe I'll be bought. Maybe I'll go public. Who knows what? There's all these different options that can happen. But to focus any energy on that is foolish. It's just foolhardy to focus on that because you can't control that. She can't make it happen. Even if she's wildly successful with her product, she doesn't know that some other corporation might come in and buy her or not, right? So she just has to realize that the outcome, the results will happen because of what you're doing today. So entrepreneurs today, if they want to focus on these underserved needs, that's what they should say. What is the need? Why isn't it served well? Do I have a better solution? Let me get that solution. Let me get it to them. Let me price it right. Let me deliver it right. Let me advertise it. Let me make sure my target knows what I want. Be obsessive about running your business. The outcomes will happen later. And so it's unfortunate for her because whatever cycle she's spending on that idea of getting bought by another company are cycles that she should be spending focusing on her customer and their needs.
I see that. And, those in the startup community are, there's this idea of a lifestyle business and a lot of times they say it's bad, right? But it's not. A lifestyle business is not inherently bad or good. You hear this a lot in the startup community. They, give me your pitch, and somebody will be giving their pitch, and then the investor will say, well, that's a lifestyle business. I want nothing to do with it. And what it does is it paints an ugly picture to the entrepreneur, who instead of saying, okay, well, it's a lifestyle business, but I can still make a lot of money at it, they get discouraged, and then they fold up their tent and they go home. I've seen this a lot of times. And what's interesting is people that have lifestyle businesses are the ones that have the big houses on the hill. There's nothing wrong with that. And this kind of folds back to what you said, focused on delivering that value, and even if it is a quote unquote lifestyle business. And then if you grow it enough, if you have enough customers, and then you buy the house on the hill, then you become interesting to these big companies that will want to acquire you.
Right. Again, as I always tell people, don't focus on the results, don't focus on the outcomes, focus on delivering value. If you do that, you've opened your eyes up, to new ways of delivering the value, new pricing models, new types of products that you can take out. That's really where you need to be thinking on a daily basis.
Excellent. Well, one of the things I want to focus on next week is the idea of kind of two things folded into one. And so, we're in the middle of this COVID pandemic, right? And there's been a fundamental shift in the way that businesses are run. I mean, just go to any restaurant, go to any place where you interact with people. And I went to Costco yesterday and I had to wear a mask. And so it's changing. Everything's changed, right? And everything's going to be different. So I want to kind of apply the thinking of COVID-19 and what's happening in there with a little bit of the gig economy. I want to blend those together. I want to give people an idea of, in light of what's happening with COVID and in light of trends that we talked about the other day regarding how it's just accelerated things that are already happening with the school system, with movie theaters, with entertainment, all these things. I want to focus on that and deliver to our listeners, our viewers, a jam-packed show on exactly that, right? The gig economy, COVID-19, the death of retail, kind of give a little bit of a high end of that. So any thoughts on that before we close?
It's all going to be related to understanding trends. What are the big trends globally, nationally, and in your specific market? Once we understand trends, then we know how to deal with all of these issues that come up. These riots right now today, these protests, they're a disruption in a lot of people's business, but they're based on a trend, right? If you'd identified that trend, you'd be able to have served into that trend and you'd be in a great position today. So I think what we're going to see repeated again and again as we talk through these issues is understanding how to identify the important trends and then how to incorporate those trends into your business model and make yourself more successful.
All right, that sounds great. Well, thanks to everybody for listening, for watching. And Adam, we'll talk to you next week and looking forward to it.
Great job, Manny. Looking forward to it myself.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.